Suicide, then forgiveness. Shattering stigma, igniting hope. I'm Elaine Lindsay, and my mission is to end the silence, the stigma, and the shame surrounding suicide, ideation, and mental health. We talk about the hard stuff, because asking for help should be as easy as ordering a coffee. Here, we share real stories from those who've lost someone, survived an attempt, live with ideation, or battle mental health challenges. Why? Because sharing your burden can lighten the load. Please note, Suicide Then Forgiveness, the podcast, is for education only. Some of the subject matter could be triggering for those who are either grieving or having mental health problems. If you're in North America, you can text 988 for immediate support. And if you're elsewhere, please reach out to your local suicide hotline or mental health service. You matter. My aim is to normalize the conversation so you feel safe enough to speak up and ask for help. So now, let's start the show. Hi there. It's good to be back. And I'm sorry, I realize it seems a little, self-indulgent. The past few episodes have been me, mostly, and I'm afraid this one will be as well. Yet I think this is important, and I'm putting this together because I'm really relieved to say today I'm on an upward trajectory. It took quite a while for me to catch myself falling. See, my father died on the 9th of March, and it's currently the 8th of April. It's been a full month, and yet I am still waiting to be able to inter my father, because I live in Canada, in the world's second coldest capital. And in all honesty, the ground is frozen. It's basically the bottom line. Now, I realize that's not a big deal because it has to do with everyone who has to bury someone now. And people have said he had a great life. He was 92. I totally get that. And yes, he did. My father is my hero. And yet, it doesn't stop me from being so sad and from basically boarding the grief chain. And basically reboarding the grief train. I thought I had a handle on it. In all honesty, I've lost a lot of people over the years. And as people who watch the episode know, a lot of them I've actually lost to suicide. This was not the case. My father went peacefully in his sleep. I had asked the night before. I literally asked my mom to come and get him because he just wasn't getting to live life as he knew it anymore. See, my father had dementia. I feel truly blessed that he only had dementia for a little over 2 years. And in that time, he knew who we were. He didn't have a great short-term memory. It actually became a bit of a joke with him and I. The blind leading the blind. because he'd ask me what day it was or what the date was. And invariably, I'd screw it up. And then we'd laugh. And then a moment later, he'd ask again because he'd forgotten. Our conversations during the week were almost by rote. On Mondays, we talked about the fact that he didn't get a paper on Monday anymore. And no, they didn't lower the price. It was still the same price for 2 less papers because it was no longer a paper on Sunday either. Did you sleep well, Dad? Basically, I would get some smart aleck answer. And he'd say, I'm still boots up. That was his idea of funny. He had forgotten over this last year that my mom died. There were many painful conversations about him wondering where she'd gone. And then in between those, he would wonder where my sister had gone. My sister, she beat cancer for 24 and a half years. And then she got a Moderna shot. She was gone in 3 weeks. She had trouble breathing. The cancer had left her, the chemotherapy rather, had left her with definite breathing issues. She had COPD. And unfortunately, when no one was home but her, she fell down the stairs. And we had to let her go 4 days later. That was in 2021. Dad didn't have a lot to do after that. That was October. The following May, Lucy, the Boston Terrier, died. It left Dad with no daily routine anymore, other than our phone call. We were very lucky. My father lived 5 minutes away. He only had one absolutely ironclad wish, rule, request, and that was that he would stay in his home, the home that he and my mother purchased when they were finally able to settle down and he wasn't being transferred anymore. The home they lived in for 45 years. I was able to honor that wish against doctors' suggestions and many other people's suggestions. Never asked for, but given. People didn't understand that we came to this country, my mother, my father, myself, with my grandmother and my aunt. Instead of bringing with us worldly goods and furniture, etc., my parents used the money to bring my grandmother and my aunt with them because family is everything. And that's what mattered most to my dad. We have been immersed in putting things together, setting up the funeral mass, having a visitation at the funeral home, getting memorial cards done, informing people. All of that takes time. The strangest thing is time seemed to wow in and out. It got shorter, it got longer, it felt weird. And all through the time, people were wonderful. People kept asking how they could help. Could they come over? Could people bring me coffee? Could we have lunch? All the things that friends do. People checking on me because Most people who know me know I was Daddy's girl. I called him Daddy to drive my sister crazy. That's who he was to me. And he really mattered to me. Whole family did. Dad was the last one of his generation, the last one of the friends here in Canada, of all their group that chummed together, of many of the veteran peacekeepers that he served with, of all of those he served in the RCAF with in the various sections where he worked. And most definitely, all of those he served with in the RAF when he spent 13 months in Aden when it was a crown colony of Britain. All of these things and more kept going through my head. And yesterday, we went to my dad's, my husband, myself, my son, my nephew, to start sorting through an absolute house full of memories, all kinds of memories. And in actual fact, although heartbreaking, throughout the day, we found ourselves laughing uncontrollably. Some of the things that had been kept and saved, some break your heart, like every card my father had ever given my mother, and a bunch she'd given him. My mother was more like me, a little more practical. Try not to save every single thing. Dad never missed a holiday, an anniversary. God, he even got her something for Groundhog's Day. He was a romantic. He was poetic, and she was his everything. And every single card had a beautiful verse inside that he had written. And some of them were gigantic, and they were fabric and padded and just absolutely beautiful. And a lot of those were sad to me. All this stuff really has nowhere to go. And yet, through it all, it was my grade 4 report card. No, surprise, surprise. Yes, I got good grades, but it said I was very talkative. There were things from the children and an awful lot of pictures. There were pictures everywhere, tucked into the dresser mirror, beside the bed, in the night tables, in the kitchen, in the dining room, everywhere you looked. There were pictures of the 3 grandchildren and the 7 great-grandchildren. And of course, my sister and myself. Nowhere near as many of us as there were of our kids and their kids. And it was draining, exhausting. I have to say, by the time we came back, just before 6 last night, I was desperate to sit down. Hadn't sat down in over 5 hours. And puttering back and forth, putting things in bags, putting things in plastic bins, things that had to be destroyed, paperwork, other things that could just be thrown out, and things that we're going to begin sorting to give to clothing for the men's mission and other things for household goods and what we can offer as donations for newcomers to the country, etc. We got a lot of that done. We had more than a dozen full garbage bags when we were done. As many bins and 3 big garbage piles of paperwork. My father kept every piece of paper, I believe, that he ever had. Imagine my shock when in his night table I found my first communion card. It was 1962. It was a long time ago. Just imagine how much more stuff there was if he also had that. All of this, when I got home, came down on me like a ton of bricks. And yet, I realized that I wasn't as broken as I thought I would be after the first full day of starting to clear the house. And don't get me wrong, we barely made a dent. There are 2 full more floors we have not even touched. So it's going to take a while. However, last night I slept the longest I have, full 4 hours, since my dad died. And that was a little shocking. This morning, in reading through some emails and other things, I realized, my God, I had allowed myself to put myself back in a box and just let myself fall. I had said no to every request I've received in the past month. I hadn't even returned phone calls because, and this may come as a shock to people who know me, I don't want to talk. Now, even Mrs. Puglisi said that I was, quote unquote, talkative in grade 4. I've always been talkative. Right at the moment, it's the last thing I want to do. I don't know if I can hold up the other end of a conversation. And I realized at 8 o'clock this morning that I was heading down a very slippery slope. And if I allow myself to cross that line, it's going to be hell to crawl out of that hole. And so, like I've done so many times before, when life became too much and I was on the edge, I made the very difficult choice, although much less this time. Must be maturing finally. I made the choice to dust off, pick myself up, and step back into living. I can't just be like flotsam or jetsam, floating along on the top of whatever comes next. That makes no sense. Not only that, it's boring. If there's one thing I hate, it's boring. And I realized as I puttered away this morning, with still a lot of chores to do that relate to Dad's death, with notes to write, memorial cards to send, thank yous to write as well, that sitting in stasis isn't going to get any of that done for me. And I know in looking back in this past month, there are a few days where I think, wow, where was I? Did I skip a day? Did I miss a total day? Where on earth was I? I'm back. I'm here. And I'm actually a little proud of myself for seeing the warning signs. Yeah, I know, it took a whole month. Yet, that's not as long as it could have been. I spent a lot of time not in myself, not being present. I spent a lot of time basically being a victim. And for a number of years now, that is absolutely not a place I want to be. And being the dark Pollyanna, that difficult balance of playing the glad game every day and having ideation be the tail end of almost every thought can be so incredibly difficult. It can be hard to explain to people how I can make a joke, and even before the last words are off my lips, thoughts in my head are dark and dismal and about ending, which never made any sense to me. Which is why I'm so thankful that there is the Pollyanna piece of me that keeps me here. Because, truth be told, these past few years, Pollyanna is much, much stronger. Ideation piece is not in control. And that at first was a little scary. Yet now, I think it's more, I'll pat myself on the back for realizing where I'm at and acknowledging how far I've come. Now that my dad has passed, I can be much more brutally honest about how much of my life was dictated by the ideation, about how difficult life was, constantly battling with oneself. I never knew from one day to the next if I'd win, Pollyanna would win, or if ideation would win. I can more confidently say Pollyanna's got the reins. And even though we've boarded the grief train yet again, I believe I can be more useful to those in the cars around me because I've come so close so many times, because I've had so many losses, because I can truly say that the dark Pollyanna does value living. And I know that I have an awful lot more of it to do. What does that mean from the perspective of I've made that choice, now what do I do? I reinvest in my daily meditations. I am going back to the drawing board and writing out what I'm grateful for every day. And something I've done for many years now, I do what I call my fly-by messages. I tell those around me that I love them, that I'm thinking about them. I'm here to listen if they need me. And stepping up to listen, I think, is critically important. It's my way to give back. It's just as important to let people know that I was right there. I'm in the pit and I'm now climbing out so that I can fully step up to listen. Because we each have to help another. It doesn't matter whether you know them or not. I have asked before and I'll ask again. If you could just take 10 minutes every month and give it to someone you don't know and just tell them you will listen. You're going to step up and listen to what they have to say. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm not asking you to give them solutions. I'm not asking for any of that. I'm asking you simply to listen. We all need to be seen and we all need to be heard. And I believe it all starts with each one of us. So this is my pledge for this month. I will actively seek out those to whom I can step up to listen. I hope you can find that one person as well. Or if you're struggling, you can be that one person that one of us can step up to listen to. And I thank you so much for hearing me out. I look forward to seeing you next time. Make the very most of your today, every day. And I also want to say that next week's show is going to be a friend I hadn't seen in a long time. I'll be chatting with John Lee Dumas. He's an ex-Army veteran. He is an amazing entrepreneur. He is a podcaster extraordinaire who does Entrepreneurs on Fire. And I met him back when he started his podcast in 2011. I actually met him through Google Plus, which is a platform no longer with us, sadly. I thank you so much for listening. And be sure and tune in next week. It's going to be really good. Bye for now. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for being here for another inspiring episode of Suicide Zen Forgiveness. We appreciate you tuning in. Please subscribe and download on your favorite service and check out SZF's YouTube channel or Facebook community. If you have the chance to leave a 5-star rating or review, it'd be greatly appreciated. Please refer this to a friend you know who may benefit from the hope and inspiration from our guests. Suicide Zen Forgiveness was brought to you by the following sponsors. Truel Social Media, the digital integration specialists. Let them get you rockin' page 1 in the search results. Canada's keynote humorist Judy Croon, motivational speaker, comedian, author, and stand-up coach at Second City, Judy has been involved for over a decade in the City Street Outreach Program in Toronto.
The Ultimate Podcasting Pack. This is great for you if you're just starting your podcast or if you've been running it for a while. It's filled with tools, templates, and trainings for starting, growing, and monetizing your podcast. Get access to time-saving systems and strategies for accelerating your process at each step. Find new connections and collaborations in the uplifting podcasting community. I look forward to seeing you there.
Do you have a story to share? Do you know someone you think would be a great guest? Please go to szf42.com. And for our American listeners, that's szf42.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again.